You think the Iranian economy's doing well?
They're
getting bombed to smithereens, Jessica.
You don't think they're making more money from?
No, they're not making that much money, Jessica.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. Listen.
Fox News' token liberal Jessica Tarlov went up against her brain-dead MAGA co-host Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld over Donald Trump's idiotic war in Iran. We're going to take a look at clips from this panel debate with Jessica Tarlov, Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld, and the rest. I have thoughts that I want to share, too. Let's get into it together.
1 week for Iran to make a deal, or their fate is sealed. President Trump warning the regime leaders he hasn't smoked that he is ready to blow them to smithereens if they don't wise up.
But we've had regime change, if you look already, because the one regime was decimated, destroyed, they're all dead. The next regime is mostly dead. And the third regime, we're dealing with different people than anybody's dealt with before. It's a whole different group of people. So I would consider that regime change. We're doing extremely well in that negotiation, but you never know with Iran because we negotiate with them and then we always have to blow them up. And we will probably, I think we'll make a deal with them, pretty sure. Whether it's possible, we won't.
The White House says President Trump is leaving all options on the table as 3,500 troops arrive in the Middle East. Officials say this will help them unleash a major offensive if talks fail. Here's Caroline Levitt.
The Pentagon has always stated 4 to 6 weeks estimated timeline for Operation Epic Fury. We're on day 30 today. So again, you do the math on how much longer the Pentagon needs to fully achieve the objectives of Operation Epic Fury, which I will reiterate: destroy the Iranian Navy, destroy their ballistic missiles, dismantle their missile and drone production infrastructure, significantly weaken their proxies throughout the course of this operation, and then, of course, preventing Iran from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon.
But despite U.S. forces laying waste to target after target, Democrats are still painting the war as an abject failure.
I don't support this administration, period. They've gotten us into what will be looked at as one of the greatest blunders, presidential blunders of our time.
Donald Trump said, we won this war. And so the question for President Trump, who's completely delusional, is if we won the war, why are they preparing to send thousands of more American troops into harm's way?
So, Charlie, it seems like the issue here is you have one side, the Democrats, who are looking at this through a political lens and assume, or basically tell everybody else, that Trump is also looking through this through a political lens, which means they don't know anything about Trump.
Yeah, they've not learned anything in 10 years. And I love what Spartacus said right there. He actually admitted the whole problem for them. He said, I don't support anything that this administration does, period. So therefore, no matter what they did, he would have been against it. They're the two biggest brain dead hot takes that come out of all this. The first one is that somehow like Israel conned Trump into going into war. It's the stupidest thing, like as if the world's largest economy doesn't have like financial interest in the Strait of Hormuz. Like there aren't actual American interests at play here. But the single biggest idiotic hot take is the idea that Trump did this for political reasons. He doesn't do things like this for political reasons. First of all, politicians never do anything in an election year for political reasons because they don't want to have to pay the price for it in the election. And I think that to me, what it reveals about these people who are saying that he's going to pay a political price and this is, that he's doing this is that those people, those politicians never do anything except things for political reasons. They never do something that they believe is the right thing because they believe it's the right thing to do.
That is a great point, Jessica, that he is obviously paying the price in the election. If you look at the polls that I know you're going to cite. So that doesn't actually jibe well with the fact that you guys always say he's doing it for political reasons. No, he's actually spending kind of the goodwill he's had in the bank to make this happen.
Well, he didn't have a ton of goodwill in the bank, actually. And yes, he's depleting whatever was left in the reservoir.
Because he's not a politician. I'm glad you agree with Charlie.
He's a new kind of politician, a politician who doesn't care about winning that much, I guess, or who's having more trouble with the facts on the ground than some politicians who came before him. I wasn't going to cite any polling, though, but I'm glad we got that out there anyway. A few things that came out of the weekend that I think are important to touch on. Trump was bragging about the 20 tankers that got by the Strait of Hormuz as if that was a big win for the Americans. And none of them were American tankers. They were Pakistani tankers. And that came as a direct result of negotiations between Pakistan and the Iranians. The Iranians like it because they're making more money than they ever have before. And it's an affirmation of the fact that we have been closed out of that conversation. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the Iranians launched 2 times more missiles on a daily basis than a week ago now. That's concerning about their ability to rearm and to rebuild. And Marco Rubio put out a statement talking about the clear objectives. And I think he even said you should write this down. So I did. 1, destruction of Iran's Air Force. 2, destruction of their Navy. 3, severely diminishing their missile launching capabilities. 4, destruction of their factories. We have moved away from what Caroline Leavitt was even saying from the podium today, because she was talking about nuclear programs. That's not on the list anymore, getting rid of the nuclear material. What happened to eradicating their support for proxy forces? The regime change, what Trump said is ridiculous. Like, there's a new guy there, so it's a regime change. The regime change was supposed to be a free Iran, right? That these people would be able to actually come out of their houses and have a peaceful existence. And we don't even talk about those things anymore. What? So Dana tried, and Donald Trump wasn't very interested in that. So I'm saying that looking at the facts on the ground and not just going with this narrative that because the president wants it to be so, that it's the reality, is objectively the correct thing to do. I'm not saying that through a partisan lens. I'm not saying I just object to everything that he's going to do. Look at our European allies. Look at the things that I just talked about, the way that the economy is performing, and I think it speaks for itself.
So, Jesse, all right. Before we get into what Jesse Waters had to say, I want to address a couple of the things in the first part of the video here. So, Charlie Hurt and Greg Gutfeld, these two clowns, these epic buffoons are championing the idea that Trump's not a politician. He just does what he thinks is the right thing. And all these other politicians, they didn't do this because it would have hurt them politically. If that's the reason that the previous presidents didn't get into this idiotic war that Donald Trump is involved in now, that's great. Whether they knew it was the wrong thing to do, whether they thought the United States would lose, or whether they did it or did not get involved in the war for political reasons, it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, they didn't do it. But Donald Trump was the first president to be dumb enough to actually get involved in this war. And also Charlie Hurt brings up this idea that Israel conned Trump into getting involved in this war, which a lot of people think that. I disagree. My just kind of gut instinct is one, Trump is a gigantic narcissist and a warmonger. He loves war. He talks about all the wars that he stopped, but we all know that that's __. He loves war. And I would guess that Netanyahu, rather than trying to bully Trump into this war, said, "Oh, Donald, look, you'll go down in history to be the first president who was brave enough to take on Iran. All the other ones, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and all the rest, they weren't brave like you. They were cowards. And they were so much, or I was going to say they were so much dumber than you." But he probably put it as that you're so much smarter than them, Donald. That's probably what Netanyahu did in this case. So Greg Gutfeld, Charlie Hurt, they're propagandists. They're there to simp for Donald Trump. Whether they believe these things or not, it doesn't really matter. It's propaganda fed to the brain-dead people who watch Fox News. But let's continue, and we're going to see the next __ Jesse Waters react to what Jessica Tarlov had to say.
Everything Jessica said is independent of her feelings about Trump.
Yeah,
just like all the Democrats.
partisan at all.
There's nothing partisan there. I'm glad that we got that out of the way.
I'm glad she said the Iranian economy is doing better than ever. You think the Iranian economy is doing well?
They're
getting bombed to smithereens, Jessica.
You don't think they're making more money from?
No, they're not making that much money, Jessica.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. Listen, Donald Trump is like the American eagle. On the one hand, he's got the olive branch. On the other hand, he's got a bundle of arrows. I don't know what's going to happen. I could wake up Friday and there could either be a peace treaty or we could have Marines going in. And I don't think the gay Ayatollah knows either. And that's how we like it. You got to keep him on his toes. He's weighing options right now. Both options are very high risk and very high reward, and they might extend that timeline. 4 to 6 weeks timeline. 4 weeks, Jessica, is 4 times 7 is around 28. This would be about a month. Just trying to do the math for you. One of those options, seizing the uranium. So you'd go in under fire, send in the Marines, special task force. You'd have to probably use the discombobulator, which we used against Maduro's crew. Makes everybody throw up. And then they all pass out. So then you'd have to bring in excavators and engineers. You'd have to kind of dig through the tunnels. You'd seize the uranium, put them in caskets, throw them on trucks, drive them to an airstrip, and fly them out of town. This has never been done before in combat. It's only been done in Ukraine and Georgia. Very, very dangerous. The other thing we've all talked about, seizing Karg and seizing the Strait.
Which you said was supposed to happen. He did the same method. I'm going to mess with the markets before the open, which the Iranians predicted. Then you said by Friday.
Pretty soon. I bet you it's going to happen pretty soon.
Great.
One way or the other,
More
it's going to be open. So they're going to have to go in, and then they're going to have to hold that territory. You're right. They'll have to hold Karg or hold the coastline, and that's just the way it's going to be if you need to achieve the mission. You are right, though. I mean, the Iranians do have thousands of drones still. They still have 100 of missiles, and those can sometimes get through air defenses, although the air defenses have been 90% effective. Zelensky's going to backfill some of those defensive systems. That's great. But here's the deal. Once you take Karg, it takes their queen off the chessboard, and then you can really negotiate from a much stronger position. The next 2 weeks, we'll probably see the most dangerous and decisive action of the war so far. And I can just pray it goes well. I think I can speak for myself that I pray it goes well.
It's beautiful.
Dana, I haven't seen you since Thursday. And might I say, you're even more attractive today than you were on Thursday.
Thank you. That's pink. So President Trump is in a situation that most commanders in chief find themselves in at some point, and that is having to make decisions that are like a tough decision and a tougher decision. And all the options are difficult, but to me,
Donald Trump wouldn't be having to make these tough decisions right now if he wouldn't have gotten into this war that nobody wanted except Donald Trump and Israel.
questionable politically, like, for example, letting the Russian oil cargo get to Cuba. But like that is a decision that in an ideal world, would he have wanted to do that? Probably not. But in order to keep the market fluid and to avoid a humanitarian disaster in Cuba at the moment. So he's saying, okay, we can do that. He also did something this week that we have been talking about for a while. And not a lot of people picked up on it, but remember we kept talking about the denominator.
Yes.
So people was like, oh, well, we bombed this many and we bombed this many, but like of how many? So last night he told the Financial Times, we have taken out 13,000 and we have 3,000 more to go.
Nice.
So I was like, okay, so that shows you a military success, but yes, more needs to be done. But I really think that the Iranians are feeling it because they are, one, encouraging terrorist threats in our country. So over the weekend, France disrupted a terror attack directly linked back to the Iranian issue. And then what Iran said today is that they are threatening U.S. students who are studying in the Middle East. So that's just in. I don't know what political price he could possibly pay. He's not running for president again. If it's the midterms, I don't know if he cares that much.
Yeah.
He's going to do what he can, but he understands history and knows that it's probably likely that the Republicans won't be able to hold it, even if they try.
All right, I can't take any more. So I'm going to wrap this up. The political price could be the Democrats win the midterms, and if the Democrats don't wimp out, they just have hearings and trials for the next 2 years. Impeach Trump, go after his family, go after his buddies that are doing all kinds of insider trading along with Donald Trump's family. If the Democrats actually do what they should, the next 2 years could be very, very bad for Donald Trump. Let's keep our fingers crossed on that. In terms of these idiots, Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters, you know, they're acting like the war is just about over because Trump says it is. But if it continues on for another 6 months, then they'll be spinning it. Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters will be doing the logic pretzels and mental gymnastics to say, oh, it needed to go on for 6 months more. But the truth of the matter is we had a strait that was open. Now we have a strait that is closed. And Donald Trump, it's not in this video because this just happened right before I recorded. Donald Trump said to our allies in Europe, go and get your own oil from the strait. So Donald Trump has destabilized everything, not just the United States economy, but other economies throughout the world. And Iran could turn out to be the winner in this rather than the loser. The United States could be the loser. Iran could be the winner because all of these other countries could be making deals with them. And when Jesse Waters makes fun of Jessica Tarlov saying, oh, you know, it's ridiculous to think that Iran is making money. Yeah, they're making more money with oil, and they're probably going to make much more money with oil because all of these countries are going to be going to Iran and not dealing in the dollar. They're going to be dealing in other currencies, which will further harm the United States. So, as is always the case, Jessica Tarlov comes on the 5 with facts. And with Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters and this Charlie her douche, it's their feelings, what they want to happen. And that's a big difference between MAGA and normal people, and particularly people on the left. But let me know what you think about this interaction between Jessica Tarlov, and whether or not you think she's right, or if you side with the Fox News clowns, Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm almost at 90,000 subscribers. I want to get to 100,000, and with your help I can do that. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I'm Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next.